Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
Welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about all things relating to wealth creation with a special focus on real estate and business. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, and with me I have Justin Steck. Justin, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Good morning, guys.
So Justin, a little bit about him, and I'll let him expand on it. He is from the Rochester area in Minnesota, a little bit south of the Twin Cities. And he's been doing a lot of different things, doing flips. He's been doing roofing. He's got a venture right now that is kind of a wedding event center. They do a mud run. They do all kinds of stuff. So I'll let Justin kind of expand into everything that he's been doing. Why don't you talk about, I guess, kind of how'd you get started and where you at a little bit today?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around business, and so did my brother, who's 8 years older, and he works for the union now. And ever since I was a kid, I took business and ran with it. Parents had a few different businesses growing up, mini storage and a insulation company. So I used to mow our 4-acre yard and had to mow the mini storage, just part of your chores. Now, no pay, but I could mow other properties. So I actually went around the neighborhood, hit up flyers, and did snow removal and plowing for a few neighbors. Started saving money, and actually started buying cars when I was like 12 years old. My dad had a used car lot for fun, kind of flipping cars. I mean, $200, $300, $400 cars, worked way up to a few $1,000 cars, got into motorcycles in high school. So really just started at a young age, having a little bit of money saved up because I didn't have any bills, and you kind of learn the responsibility of, what you can buy, fix it up, and make some money. And a lot of times you're having fun or buying neat stuff. And I bought my first house right before I graduated. My parents did help co-sign the loan when I was 17 because I was young for my grade. So the last few months of school, I actually was working on my first house. It was a foreclosure. And I had started a paintball business when I was 16, had a property, they had some land. So I kind of turned that into a little mini business when I was younger. So just kind of juggling a few little things back then. But I started the housing stuff off right when the foreclosures were hitting huge around 2006. My dad had worked on a few houses growing up, different properties. So was my brother, who's 8 years older. And you kind of learn a few things here and there, and a few things were hired out on that first house, and I would work with people on them. And I couldn't afford 2 houses, but I think I was 19 or so when I had my second house. So I had one rental going, and then just kept working on foreclosures. And for a while, we were all working together. My dad retired right around there, and he's still kind of bored. So then the 3 of us started knocking houses out, my brother and dad and I as a team. And I'd usually be flipping one of my own houses on the side, just working around the clock throughout the summer. And then I was racing a snowmobile professionally at the time in the winter. So kind of started right around then and just kept running with it. And in the mix of all that, started a roofing company up. Just because there was good money in it when I was flipping houses. People would ask to lay carpet, do tile, and all that, and there wasn't much money in that, even though I had all those skills. But roofing was very profitable, so kind of got licensed and set up for that company. And really for most of the last 10 years was juggling, took all my profits from roofing, pumped it into real estate, whether I was paying houses off or using it as a down payment, and just kind of lit that on fire. And then a year and a half ago, I took on this new event center project, 172 acre property that was an abandoned ski hill. And now that's a completely different venture, just kind of because I was getting bored with real estate. So, that's kind of the road that I started at a young age. And I've helped some friends build different businesses along the way too. So you kind of always learning and meeting people. So, but that's what I did.
Cool. So your first rental house was when you were 17.
First flip house.
Oh, first flip. Okay.
Yeah, I was still living at home at the time because I hadn't graduated quite yet. But I had one bedroom done, one bathroom and the kitchen were not really done, but they were semi-usable. So the day I graduated and I turned 18, I moved into the house, which was about 2 weeks before graduation.
Okay.
And it was a dump, except for one nice bedroom, new carpet, new paint, and bed on the floor. So pretty much any time I was working on that 24/7, before school, after school. And once I graduated, then I just knocked that house out, got it listed, started renting with my brother. He lived right up the road. So just rented a room from him, and I kind of bounced around. I moved like 8 times in 6 years because I'd move into whatever house I was working on. And then I'd either stay at my girlfriend's place or just kind of float between closings. So, but yeah, first one was right before I turned 18. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I don't think there's many 18-year-olds that are flipping a house while they're in high school.
right. Well, and the thing was, and I still to this day look at it as I don't look at I think that was probably a $65,000 or $70,000 house back then. And then I know the loan got taken out, probably an extra $25,000 for remodeling costs.
Sure.
Lending was a little different back then. They were a little more lenient on what you could get approved for, and all that. But I just looked at it. I had to make it like a $600 a month payment.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a big deal to me even back then. I mean, I made that, off of whatever I was doing at the time, and flipping cars or other stuff was just bonus, or working for other people for cash. So I really wasn't worried about the big number that everyone gets caught up on. It was just make the payment. The money was there for the improvements in the home. And just kind of went with it.
But I mean, that's great. But that shows that, I mean, I think you had a good background that you were brought up in, where it sounds like your parents were pretty entrepreneurial. And then you didn't have that fear that holds a lot of people back right away.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are way more established, late 20s, early 30s, but married, single, a bunch of variety, and they could very easily jumped on the rental train back in those days. And fear or, worry of risk held them back. And that's one thing that'll just, kill any dream or kill any business opportunity if you don't do something.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, so you've got this event center, then do you still have your roofing business?
Yeah, I'm hoping to actually basically sell it off to a friend either at the end of this year or next year, but it is great money when you run it. So I got rid of a handful of rentals over this last year, and still run the roofing. So right now it is juggling all 3. Licensed realtor, but I usually only use that for my personal stuff or maybe a check here and there. So it's really those 3, but I'd like to get it down to really just the event center, and keep growing this. Just a little transition period right now.
Well, before we talk a little bit about the event center, so on this roofing company, are you doing a lot of the roofing yourself, or you hire that out? How's that work?
Yeah, I fell into that, like I say, just doing a few here and there, and I was doing them with basically like one friend who had worked for me back in the day, and we worked our butts off. Job that nowadays would take us 6-7 hours took 4 days, 4 12-hour days. So a little different. But I started it up where it's just kind of passing out business cards. When I actually started the business, I really hit the ground and I focused on that repetitive business. So realtors and management companies, I got set up with a few of them. So they're calling me a few times a year, made it easier. But I'd go knock doors, you name it. And And then once things took off, once things started working, I was always, owner operated. So I was working on the roofs with guys, but started hiring more and more people. And next thing you know, your dollar per hour is through the roof, and you're not working as hard yourself. And you didn't look at just each project, and that extra $400 or $500 on the labor made your dollar per hour double or triple. So you didn't look at, I only made $2,500 on this roof instead of $3,000. You got it done in a day or 6 hours versus 4 days. You can do a heck of a lot more work or have a lot more fun. So up until last year, I was always on every single roof. For the most part, I do have a friend who is helping run the business now, who I'm going to transfer it to. He is operating the crew, which has been nice. It's always one of those things where it's not the best industry. So finding workers, they come and go. You turn and burn workers in that industry a ton. So when you're short on help, you're the one, picking up the extra slack yourself. So it's last year, put him in a spot where he can sell jobs and kind of getting his feet wet and running the business, but I still do most of sales and, handle a lot of finance and scheduling. But he's running the crew and all that, which has been made it easier for me to just sell jobs, keep things flowing smoothly, but not deal with the BS of the crew. And that's actually been working well. So kind of one of the first years I've stepped back and put someone else more in charge of those things, which I could have done years ago, but it's just one of those things where it is a risky business. You got guys that could get hurt, houses that are, anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million houses you're roofing. You don't want to see stuff getting dropped, landscape getting wrecked. So it took a while to find a guy that you trust to start handling those things when it's your name and your money on the line.
Yeah, I think in construction, as you know, it is hard to find good quality people that are willing to stick around too.
Yeah. Well, and any guy, you could pay them enough money, they'll stick around, but at some point, are they worth that? Yeah. Or if they're that good, they're probably doing their own thing, or they could find a union gig or something else, that is going to pay just as good or better. Roofing is an industry, very interesting industry on the labor side. But yeah, the whole construction industry, it's help is hard to find.
Yeah. So how many rentals do you have right now?
I'm down to 3. I closed one yesterday, actually. I was at 11 when I took on the event center a year ago. So the market in Rochester right now, property values are at pretty much an all-time high. So I didn't feel bad about selling those off. It was also kind of the lifeblood to get this new project going. And then I just had too much going on. Yeah. So, I actually cut it from 11 to 3 right now. That's where I'm at today.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about this event center because you're sitting in it right now. Yeah. And B, I have a connection with it. So I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm excited because for the guests that don't know is me and a few other partners actually bought this event center, this ski resort, and it just didn't work, and we needed to sell it or wanted to sell it, and Justin stepped up to the plate, bought it, and now I think he's doing some really good things with it. And so that's why I wanted to interview Justin. He's got it up and running, and in pretty quick order, I would say you got it up and running, and it looks fantastic. I've been there. I was there last fall, I believe, and looks fantastic. We did some work to the outside, but the whole inside you completely redid and made that. It looks great. Did some work to the outside as well, and now you've added this mud run that's done. It's for 2 years. It's been successful. So I'll stop talking and let you talk a little bit more about, I guess, how did you come to decide to buy it, and what's your business plan with it, and what's the future look like for it?
Yeah, I know before I stumbled upon this, I'd been looking for like 35, 40 acres for myself. Just one. I mean, I grew up outdoors racing and all that on 25 acres of land. I wanted something where I had my own space for myself. So I always, a lot of times, kind of connect some of business with personal because, I mean, you have to juggle that when it's your life.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anything great, and nothing for 35, 40 acres really had any business potential. And the 25 acres I grew up on had a track for training and all that for racing. And we talked about it'd be cool to do some kind of obstacle course, because that's what I actually used to kind of do through the woods for training for racing, was do push-ups in the middle of the woods, climb over stuff, run, and then ride a ton of four-wheeler or dirt bike. That's what my training was. And we're like, God, if you had a few hundred people, you could make some good money doing that. We're always kicking around, good business ideas or
Yep.
things you can do to make a quick buck that are fun. A lot of us like having fun and making money. So a friend actually, we used to ski and snowboard out here when I was a kid. I mean, it was 11 years before, I set foot on this place that I'd been out here. I actually raced snowmobile out here as well. So I had a little bit of connection to the property, but we're in the area buying fireworks in Wisconsin for Christmas. Actually, we used to have a Christmas camp out, and he's like, steeplechase is for sale, and I'm like, oh. Well, we should swing out, because it was like 10 minutes off the road. So we came out, and I was like, this place is a dump. And then start looking around, and you're like, these views are just phenomenal. It was actually like sleeting and slushing on us that day. And then I actually called you to see if we could get in, take a look. And you're like, well, we don't just let anyone look at the place. Are you a realtor? And so, yeah, didn't, I think it was a couple days later we came back, and that day it had actually snowed like 8 inches, like the night
That's
before.
right. That's right.
So I hadn't snowboarded in 11 years. And we brought our boards out because mostly we just wanted to see what the outbuildings were down low and kind of tour the property. So that first day was a quick trip, didn't see much, didn't get in the building, kind of just, oh, this is neat, let's check it out. Went down the hill, fell like 100 times, and just traipsing through the snow, and found a few of the buildings and started looking through, and we're like, there's all this old snowmaking equipment, and you're trying to figure out how it worked. There's chair lifts. It's just kind of cool. And it was in the evening, because we did this with flashlights, like, down through the brushy hill in the dark was a great idea. And sitting on the hill, the big idea I had that I've had kind of planned out for a lot of years is concerts.
Sure.
That's kind of a dream or a goal that I actually almost did one year at the Rochester Civic Center. I was going to rent that and throw a show, which is a relatively big investment. I mean, you 50 to 80 grand to put a medium-sized concert on. And if you run all the numbers, do all the legwork, you're like, yeah, you can make a lot of money if you put a good one on. Or you just lost a rental house. So sitting on the hill, actually, that was my first idea. I think we walked through the building super quick, and then we went outside. And then I knew a decent amount about the wedding industry and some of the local competitors. So that was my first thought for the building, is just, this is a neat spot. It's private. So I'm like, that's probably your more realistic business plan. And I sat there and started just scratching out numbers. Everything with any business comes down to, can you make it work? Not even as a business itself, but on your end of it. I mean, if you can buy a property that doesn't make you any money because you can afford it, great, go buy it. This was something that it needed to generate some income on top of my own, or I'd be deep water. So that's when kind of all of a sudden I'm just listening, any business opportunity, you're talking, paintball fields, hay rides, corn mazes, you name it, hunting, anything you can do, you're just making a list on this place. And what it came down to was concerts maybe someday, but that was a big question mark. It is a cool property, and if we get there, would be, awesome. But weddings, and then the running industry, the mud runs, fun runs, wine runs, beer runs, you name it. That's kind of a huge thing right now. So those were the two that I proposed to my bank that I'd been with for 7 years, done a couple $1 million worth of loans, paid hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of interest. They told me, you're an idiot, you'll go bankrupt. And they didn't really know about the running industry and that stuff. And they had turned down a few loans for event centers that a couple women wanted to start. They forgot about my rental and roofing, that I wasn't just going to give that up, turn it over and quit. The goal was to transfer into this place. So I went to a few other banks, and one of them was like, you're not that far off. We'd like to talk more about it. And so they really wanted to see more of the rental side of it. What are you worth? What are your properties worth? And then what do you think you can do to this place? Because it was in rough shape. I mean, that inside. I met a lot of people that wanted to buy the place or said they looked at it, and no one knew how to fix this place up inside. To me, it was just 4 rental houses in one. For the size of it, square footage and all that. So I knew what it would cost. You do 30 houses over 10 years yourself and another 20 with other people. You start to learn, how much tile or how much paint, how much, this, that, miscellaneous stuff. You need a water heater. So I penciled out what the building would cost me to finish it. And anytime you improve something, usually you're not straight out losing money. Usually you're adding value, sweat equity.
Yep.
So, proposed all that to the bank, and we got it really close. They made me sell most of my personal stuff for some additional equity. And they hooked everything in together, which was the scary part on this place. They took one house was a flip at the time. So they took one house, my personal house, and then 10 rentals, and they hooked everything together, refinanced it, pulled the equity out as part of the down payment, and then put a medium-sized loan on this place.
Okay.
So very weird for me is that my rentals that were cash flowing huge now didn't cash flow so huge.
Yeah.
But I still had a decent amount, 20 or more % equity in those. And that's what actually made it appealing to sell those. If they could have left those the heck alone and I could have watched those continue to do their thing, but when you got a lot of houses that were paid off or, a ton of equity in them, well, now they're maxed out, refinanced, you're paying the most interest, starting over and all that. It just drove me nuts.
But they let you sell those because you said you've been selling them. So
it's a portion of it's hooked here. So
Okay.
Let's say the house was $60,000 loan. It was a $140,000 house. So they're willing to loan $100,000 on that house.
Yep.
60,000 was still on that house. The other 40 was hooked into this place.
Okay.
So when I sell that house off, if I sold it for 160, and they got 100 on it, I still have 60 grand in equity, but 40 of that right off the bat knocks down the tabs on the event center. The other 60 that was the original amount that was owed on that house clears off that loan.
Okay.
So what I started doing is I had 2 options: is finish the event center really quickly and get it kind of going, or focus on flipping some houses and roofing to make some money and build this slowly. But I put 100 hours in almost every week last year. I mean, it was unhealthy. I actually almost got sick last fall. I was down 20 pounds and I didn't have much to lose just because I went full bore. Because I said, if we get her done, then I can actually step back this year and relax a little bit. And I'll know if it was a good idea or if it's going to be a long haul. So I actually had to take some of that equity out too, just to finish the place.
Sure.
It was, I don't even know what I spent last year, but it was probably 60 or 70 grand. I mean, we got $25,000 in chairs and tables around this place. A lot of things like that. I didn't actually calculate some of that stuff to be ready for big weddings. We knew what we had to have to finish the place, but to actually be operational in the wedding industry, a little bit different ball game.
Yeah.
Than a roofing company. So, so I started working on a place last spring, and we actually started booking weddings, I think late July last year. So, almost just over a year from when we actually booked our first wedding, and the building wasn't even done yet. So it got easier the more that the building got finished. Had 2 weddings last winter, and then now we've had, I think 8 this year, and I think we got another 10 on deck for this fall.
Wow.
So it's 22 or 23 or something bookings within basically the first year. And that actually was kind of surprised me. It was better than expected.
That's good.
Every wedding's been a 5-star wedding, reviews online, and that's the important thing that'll keep the place alive. You know, I knew nothing about being a wedding, like anything. Did a bunch of research, but it was kind of winging it. Flat out, we were winging it the first few weddings, but we did our job. We did exactly what we said we were going to, and the property inside and out is phenomenal. It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
And that's what is unique about it, and people are happy. So that side of it's been going really well. And I think now we put a few thousand more people through here this year. You know, the wedding stuff is just going to keep snowballing, getting bigger and bigger. And that's kind of exciting to see. And then I'll step even farther back, hire an extra hand or two to really start running the event center. And I'll just maintain the property and go play.
So that's the exciting part. So, and then you've got the mud run, right?
So we actually last year, it's called the Steeplechase Challenge, which it's kind of based off of like a Tough Mudder or Warrior Dash or Spartan Race. People are familiar with those. If you're not familiar, it's basically a 3 to 5 mile trail. There's 2 of them through the woods, and you build mud holes. You build ladders to climb over, tunnels to crawl through, obstacles. Pick a pallet up, carry it through a tricky path, restack it. Bunch of weird stuff.
300-foot slide, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So what we were trying to do is not just be like a lot of the other people and have the same exact obstacles as the other big name places, or because we didn't have the money to build these huge fancy things. So I got really creative and hit a car with a hammer. 300-foot water slide this year was a hit. Probably the biggest homemade water slide anyone's seen. So we made it really unique and fun. It wasn't so competitive, which isn't my normal pace, but make it fun. And then last year was for Channel 1 Food Bank. This year and for events moving forward, we got hooked up with Toys for Tots. So doing some good things for them. It also helps push the building to just the whole name of Steeplechase, whether it's the Steeplechase Challenge or the Steeplechase Event Center.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a promotional deal. So last year's just one mud run. This year we had the 2nd annual Steeplechase Challenge, but now in October, 3rd week in October, we're also doing a Halloween 5K, and it's at nighttime underneath the ski hill lights.
Oh, cool.
So something else was really cool when I was looking into this place is we got playing around with some of the power and found out, a lot of the chairlifts are pretty rough shape, and I'd like to fix them up someday. But the lights and everything all still work. So we use some of those for weddings. We light up a few ski hills, light up the parking lot. It's really neat. And a few times now I've lit the whole place up. And in the summertime, it's just neat. It's just super cool lighting up 170 acres, basically. So this year, in a few months, we're having this Halloween one. And that's not going to be the mud and water. It's going to be spookier. People scaring you, and you're running through the woods, up and down the hill still, so it's still tough. So running stuff out here has been a pretty big hit. Reviews have been good, and we're growing that. I'd love to get that into big events. Put a few thousand people at those a couple times a year would be phenomenal. And that can open up the door to start doing other events like music, other types of vendors might want to come in, throw an Oktoberfest or something. We're set up to do more than just weddings with the building when you have that much space and parking infrastructure. But you got to build that reputation, and you got to build, just followers online that know about you more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, your building's pretty phenomenal. The whole property is, right? It's 172 acres of, some of the most beautiful property you can find. It's rolling hills. It's got the Zumbro River at the one end of it that kind of runs into it. And then the building's about 8,000 square feet, somewhere around there.
Yeah, right around.
Pretty big building.
Yep.
And you've, like I said before, you've made it phenomenal. It looks great, especially for where you started with. So you did a really good job with that. So I think you got a great thing going. So tell me now, a lot of people that are listening, they're there's some people that have successful businesses already. There's a lot of people that are just trying to figure out how to get there. And one of the things I notice is, so I'm a real estate investor, but one of the things I notice is that a lot of real estate investors don't run their real estate, don't run it like a business. They run it like a hobby, but they expect business results. How do I guess talk to me a little bit about that. How do you run it like a business? What do you do? What's your philosophies?
Yeah, I look a lot of times two different ways, the business side of it or the personal side of it. I mean, I'd go help a guy for free for a day if it's the best day of my life, even if it's hard work. And sometimes that's how roofing is. You're busting your ass, but if you got good friends around you, and it's not always that way, you're having fun, you're making money. But that's a type of business where you either look at dollar per job or dollar per hour. You really want to know, if I do this roof, what am I going to make that day? Because sometimes bidding is, bidding, you got to go a little lower, a little higher. It's not the same. It's not consistent at all, really. And then also break it down to just if it's a 6-hour day or 10-hour day, how much am I going to make per hour when I'm out there busting my butt? Or if you go to that subcontractor route, if I hire other people to do my work, do my job, then you kind of have to look at it more. What am I going to make on this job for doing little to nothing? But you still have that risk, still got your name, you still got customers, still got, headaches to deal with. But there, your dollar per hour might be hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour or thousands of dollars per hour because you're not doing much time, but your dollar per project is very small. So some things is, how hard are you working or what are you worth? And there's a point where, I've hit it a ton of times where you're doing 115 hours a week. You run out of hours in a week. You have to get to a point, if you get so big or you're growing, that you can't do it all yourself. Now you're adding in, sometimes different regulations for, employees or tax, if you're paying workman's comp, things like that. So if you build the business from the ground up, as you get bigger and it grows, there's a lot of new moving parts. You want to make sure that stuff all fits into how much money you can make. There's a lot of businesses that just don't produce enough to do that.
Yeah.
Real estate, then you get a whole different ballgame. It's not that labor-based work. It's not per job. You're looking at it as, the flip side is, what am I going to make on this project? How long is it going to take? You can still do dollar per hour on a flip, if you're doing the work yourself, or even if you're hiring people to do it for you, you still have time into that. But that's more of a percentage of return a lot of times. If I put down, even if you're financing it, if you got to put 20% down on $100,000, you got 20 grand of your money's on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't have to do a darn thing and you only make, $5,000, it sounds pretty quick and easy. But if that's a $100,000 investment to make $5,000, that's pretty risky.
Yeah.
Now, if you can make 20, 30, 40 grand, you double or tripled your money out of pocket. But then also just in general, you did a good flip there. But then you have the rental side of it is a whole nother ball game, because there you're looking at more cash flow. A lot of people want to finance the property longer or for more money and have a lower payment, so they're making more money each month. And I see that get a lot of people into trouble where they want to do a 30-year loan, and they want to hire a property manager, all this and that. They don't want to do anything, and they still have their down payment, whatever they put down, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand out of your pocket, and they're making just near to nothing in the beginning. And some people are out to ride it out for 20 years. If a renter will pay that mortgage for 20 years, you still in 20 years have a good good investment. But to me, I cannot just sit back and look at it as, if I put 20, 30 grand down and it's making no money in the beginning, or 1% or 2% return, go buy some bonds. Stock market's crazy, but you can buy bonds or do something else. Yeah. Look at your return on investment, and some people own stuff. Always owning stuff is a different ball game. It's usually a good deal. But some people don't really run it like a business, like you said, because they don't want to do any work themselves, or, there's better money out there for what they're getting back. And I think some people don't just either realize that or they don't care. So you do need to base off, what are you willing to do? You're going to manage the property yourself. You're going to hire a property manager.
Yeah.
All those little numbers on rental add up really quickly because you have your taxes and insurance. You always have those and some maintenance. Those are three costs you can't get away from in rental. Now, anything from there you add on top of that, loan and interest or, property fees or whatever, really quickly you can take a $1,200 a month rental, cut that down to $1,100 payment. You're making $100 a month. I mean, you got to ask yourself, is that worth it? Unless you're really in it for that long haul. I want to make sure I'm covered up front. So I'm willing to put a little sweat equity in or buy a rougher property, fix it up. Or if something is just a good deal, but usually you can't find a really nice house that's a good deal. Someone will buy that to live in it. But I like to get a little bit of either work myself or hiring people to get some sweat equity done. If I know any day of the week when a property is done, whether it's a 2-week flip or a 2-month flip, there's $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 in equity there. You can sell it whenever you want and you made some money. Not a bad deal. And if you keep that property for 20 years, I mean, usually in the Rochester area, every house you buy, if you kept it for 20 to 22 years, it's going to produce about $200,000. So, I mean, every 5 houses is $1 million you'll make over 20 years. But sometimes you find out if you can flip a few here and there, you can buy a lot more properties a lot quicker. And it's kind of back and forth. What are you willing to juggle or what are you willing to do for work is what you're going to make.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I mean, a lot of people think that they're going to get in these, especially single family or small rentals, because they can afford them. They can afford a $20,000, $30,000 down payment. So they're going to take that and they're going to buy a single family. And they're just going to expect that that's going to be a great investment. When in reality, like you said, it's not that great investment if you're not willing to do any of the work. If you're making $100 a month on it, and that's your projections, well, guess what? People move out. People wreck your place. People, do all kinds of stuff. So now you're probably, in the end of the day, probably lost money on the deal. And like you said, that's a terrible investment. So a couple last questions before we end. What would be your advice to somebody in business sense? What would be your advice?
I mean, I got in the event center knowing nothing about the wedding industry. Research, whatever you're thinking of doing, whether it's an oil change business, coffee shop, you want to get into real estate, newspaper stand, lemonade stand, whatever it is, do the research. It comes down to those numbers. And a lot of people, I don't think, are realistic on every possible expense. And there's always hidden expenses you're going to get hit with that you don't understand or know. The county tried to shut the event down last year, and that cost me a couple grand in realtor fee or attorney fees and everything. That was something I did not plan for. It was a big inconvenience. Took a lot of time out of my day. Got it resolved. We put on a great event. But I mean, I penciled out any scenario, and that was not one of them. So always have kind of a backup plan on what could happen with your business or something unexpected, and be prepared to have those bills. But you need to find out what does your product cost? What's the electricity? What's rent? Whatever it takes to run your business. And if you don't know, go research, get out there and check the competition, see what other people are doing, see what they're charging. Everything's it's either a plus or a minus. So if you can go out there and, you want to start a hair salon and you can figure out what the rent is on a space that you would need, what's the potential, ask hairstylists, what are they charging for their booth? Or, just talk to people and do the research. You don't really usually have to be that sneaky. If you straight up price matching a competitor, sometimes you might have to be, depending on the industry, but usually a phone call or an email, you can find out what people are charging for their product or service. You really want to do the research if you're trying to start something new, because you want to know what can you make if things are going good and you're working hard. That's probably the most important step, I'd say.
Cool. Yeah. Great advice. Fantastic. What's a favorite book or web page, or what do you like to? How do you learn? I guess.
Uh, I have ADHD and dyslexia, so reading and I do not get along in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not very techy. So a lot of stuff is it's talking to people. I mean, I've met a wide variety of people. Some of it was through racing, some of it's through vacation, but I love to talk to people and just kind of kick back different ideas or talk to different business owners. Even if it's something you have no interest in ever doing yourself, a lot of times you can learn from other people. You know, what did they do right? What did they do wrong? Or, just is there some piece of technology or business tool they're using that made them more efficient? I'm a face-to-face person or on the phone. I really don't do almost any reading. I don't have podcasts on my phone. So I'm a little bit different than a lot of, your business people out there that are, searching for that advice or that easy advice. Read a self-help book or, watch a training video online or something. And those are good tools for a lot of people. I'm not going to bash that in any way. I myself just like to either if there's something I want to learn or think I need to expand or improve on, trial and error myself or go talk to other people, kind of that face-to-face direct aspect. I know there's different videos and things you can watch online that maybe give you a different perspective, and that's always good. But I'm not a big literature type of guy.
But you know what? I think that's fine. Books are great and podcasts are good and all this other YouTube. But what you just said is, I think, extremely important, is actually talking to people face to face about what's going on. Because that they're in your area, and people are going to know that Justin is out there doing business. He's hustling. People know that. People know who you are. But if you're just in your house all day listening to podcasts or reading books, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what's going on, and it's hard to build if you're a hermit. It's hard to build if you're just going to sit there and not get out there. So I think that hustle is important. So the fact that you don't read a lot of books and stuff like that, I don't know that that's a bad thing, because you're out there hustling.
Well, and I say balance for what works for you.
Yeah.
I think so many people try to do it someone else's way or do it because that's how they were told. And there's sometimes advice is great. There's sometimes, it's just as bad if it doesn't fit for you. And talking to people or even just, selling whatever, that face-to-face people skill is something you can never, you can always either be refreshing it or improving it, because the better you are with people, the better your business is going to be. When you're doing business, you're going to deal with people. So yeah, hiding behind books and other stuff. You can be as knowledgeable as possible and go to talk to somebody and you're going to stumble and fumble through it until you're good at it. So, those people to people skills, I think, is huge. But you really got to figure out what works for you and lean on that. Don't just do what's worked for other people. They're not you. They don't have your mindset, motivation out there.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Well, Justin, I appreciate the time. If people want to get a hold of you or learn more about what you're doing or your business, where can they go?
Yeah, I would say look up the Steeplechase Event Center online or the Steeplechase Challenge. They're two different businesses. They're two different websites. There's an inquiry spot on there. If I get running around out and about crazy busy, a lot of times I have stuff sent to there because I either go through it on my own time or I have an event coordinator that also gets those emails, and sometimes I can even have them, if it's a quick, easy response, or they just remind me, hey, you need to follow up on this, because when things are crazy busy, they're crazy busy. So just pop on there, find the Steeplechase Event Center online. You can see some of the pictures, photos, videos too, kind of to get a better actual visual of what's going on out here. And shoot an inquiry if you have a question or something you want to, learn or figure out.
Awesome.
or book a wedding or go for a run. So
that's what I was just gonna say. If you're getting married, you need to really check out the webpage, because I think but no matter what, just check out the webpage because there's fantastic photos on there. And
yeah, steeplechaseevents.com or stcchallenge.com are the two different websites.
Okay, we'll put that on the show notes so everybody can link to it.
Yeah, like you said, it's one of the best views. And I mean, honestly, in Southeast Minnesota, I mean, you feel like you're sitting in Lutzen or Duluth most out here. You're 10 minutes off of 52, 60 minutes to St. Paul, 20 minutes to Rochester. It's not that far out of there, so it's really a neat spot.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we wish you best of luck, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Sounds good. Have a great day, Todd.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate you listening to the show. I think that was a fantastic interview with Justin Steck. Interesting to hear what he's got going on with the Steeplechase Event Center. Fun person to talk to, fun interview. And it's definitely fun because I was involved in that project at the start and have a connection to it. So I'm Todd Dexheimer. I am signing off. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and to subscribe and give us great reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, whatever you're listening on. Again, I'm Todd Dexheimer, Pillars of Wealth Creation. I am signing out, and remember, every day is a Saturday. Want to learn more about real estate investing? Tune in to the best real estate investing advice ever with Joe Fairless. Joe has the longest daily running podcast on iTunes, well over 1,000 episodes. You can listen to me on Joe's podcast, episode 1015, where Joe interviews me and asks me about my best real estate investing advice. Joe has interviewed fantastic guests such as Emmett Smith, Robert Kiyosaki, Barbara Corcoran, all kinds of fantastic guests. Make sure that you go on to Joe's podcast, subscribe, give him a 5-star rating and review. You do not want to miss out on a fantastic podcast, the best real estate investing advice ever with Joe Fairless.